Hello, everyone. My name is Eric Whitlock, and this is my Parent of the Field presentation. I chose to do it on Gene Sharp um, because I have an intern who is studying at the um, Virginia Tech Center for Violence Prevention and Peace Studies, and that center was founded because of the shooting that took place on the Virginia Tech campus in 2007. Um, but they are largely influenced, I think, by Gene Sharp's work. So prior to this presentation, I had done um, some research on Gene Sharp so that I could have a better understanding of the perspective that my intern would be coming from. Um, and so that was largely why I chose to present on Gene Sharp. So Gene Sharp was born on January 21st, 1928, and he died just last year, shortly after his birthday on January 28th. And he was 90 years old. Um, some of his most notable accomplishments include being a four-time Nobel Peace Prize nominee. He was the recipient of the 2012 Right Livelihood Award. Many of his books and articles have been translated into 50 or more languages, and he was the founder of the Albert Einstein Institute. If you're interested in learning more about the Institute, I've attached the link for your reference. In 1946, Sharp graduated from high school. He was really interested in economic injustices and racial segregation at this time. And then in 1949, he started college. He majored in social science because that was the broadest category of study that he could be involved in. At this time, he was interested in lots of different things, and he really wasn't sure what he wanted to study. So social science seemed to be it, just because he could study, lots of different things within that one category. And in 1951, he started his master's in sociology. He completed a thesis in nonviolence, actually because it was a phrase that he disliked, and so he wanted to learn more about it and really prove that it didn't exist to some extent, which I find interesting because the rest of his work has been about the importance of nonviolence and how we can move towards that. So just to give you some context about the time period that Gene Sharp grew up in, World War II had just ended, so atomic weapons were still a new idea, and the United States was just beginning to build the hydrogen bomb. So he was really interested in nonviolence at this period, just because these weapons of mass destruction were being built, and he wanted to find a way to prevent another global war. And so he really got his journey started in his hometown of Columbus, Ohio, when he participated in lunch counter sit-ins, and he worked for the Congress for Racial Equality against racial segregation. And at this time, he also said that he was heavily influenced by Richard Gregg's book, The Power of Nonviolence. But even at this time, he said he didn't see how a career in nonviolence could ever even be possible. So in 1953, he chose to burn his draft card because he didn't want to participate in the Korean War, because he was pursuing a life of nonviolence. So because he burnt his draft card, he was sentenced to 2 years in prison, but he only served 9 months and 10 days of that sentence. So when he was released from prison, he became a journalist for Peace News, which was a pacifist newspaper, and he started studying with A.J. Must, who was a pacifist. He left the journalist position and went to the Institute for Social Research, where he studied power, and he learned more about nonviolence and realist theory through Gandhi and Tolstoy. In 1959, he moved to St. Catherine's College, where he attended college, and also worked for Oxford University, and he studied with John Palaminetz, a political theorist. In 1965, Sharp moved to London, England, where he studied with Arne Naess, at the Norway Institute for Philosophy and the History of Ideas. And all of these experiences combined through Harvard and Oxford and at Norway set the foundation for the books that he published in 1973. And so this major accomplishment was The Politics of Nonviolent Action, which was a conglomeration of several articles that he had written, Power and Struggle, The Methods of Nonviolent Action, and The Dynamics of Nonviolent Action. And then about 20 years later, he founded the Albert Einstein Institute. So many of the themes and the challenges that Sharp talked about in his interview was that over the years, he constantly struggled for funding for his research. And publishers did not want to publish his books. They weren't interested in nonviolent action. They didn't think it was worth publishing. So he struggled to convey that the work that he was doing was legitimate and meaningful, and that it really would make an impact in the world. So personally, I think one of his major accomplishments to the field was this dictionary that he wrote to communicate clear concepts and terminology that the field could use to improve communication between conflict resolution practitioners. And so this was his book, The Power and Struggle, The Language of Civil Resistance and Conflict. So that wraps up my presentation. Thank you for your attention.